city of New Orleans, one of the most unique and photogenic cities in the world. We're going to show you it's the best photo spots, where to eat, what to do, and join a second line parade right now. I'm on a journey to see the world's most photographable places, to take you along with me on a virtual photo walk, to show you how to get the best Instagram spots and how I get great photos like this. I'm Jefferson Graham, and
you're watching PhotowalksTV from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Our first segment is all about the greatness of New Orleans, the history, the culture, the food. How's the city doing 20 years after Katrina? And then our second segment, it's all about the music, because
once that music start playing and you hear them drums start beating, you hear that big old tuba start whomping, it's just like nothing else comes, like all your problems go away.
As always, I am filming this TV show on an iPhone, the same device that you're probably using to photograph your birthday parties and family events, and most importantly, your travels. I make the show on the phone to show what's possible with this great device. You don't need heavy camera gear anymore, particularly on vacation, and you don't even need many accessories. You can do it all on here, as I will show you in our third segment, Photo Tip Time, how to get great vacation photos with your phone.
At the Good Times Road.
New Orleans, of course, is located on the river in Louisiana, just over the border from Mississippi. It is known for its nonstop partying on Bourbon Street, but also as a fascinating melting pot of French, Spanish, African, and American cultures. That's why NOLA, as it's called, has so many amazing local foods. There's red beans and rice and gumbo from Africa, jambalaya from Spain, and beignets from France.
There's nowhere like the food in New Orleans. Our spices, just the way we do things is just, man, you know, the gumbo. The gumbo gets the slow clap. And everywhere else, the food is good, but New Orleans, it can't be beat.
Since New Orleans is a town on the water, many know that the levees were just overwhelmed in 2005, and Hurricane Katrina ended up destroying many homes and sent people fleeing the town to restart their lives. Population is still way lower than pre-Katrina at around 350,000 people, which is 100,000 less than before the hurricane, but a good deal higher than the immediate post-Katrina drop to 230,000. The infrastructure has been strengthened, homes have been rebuilt, but some areas are frankly still recovering. Homelessness and crime, yep, they are both still an issue, but locals say they're still working on it.
Yeah, the city is definitely strong. It's better than ever. We're very resilient, and we're moving forward really strong.
But people like you have not given up on New Orleans.
No, I mean, I came back. Why would you give up on the city just because there was a hardship?
Meanwhile, photo ops galore all over the city. In fact, we're going to start in a place where most tourists don't usually flock to.
People who come here and only go to the French Quarter are really, really missing out on what it is to come to the city. It takes getting out of the quarter, which is mostly tourists now. It's a lot of tourists. The tourists are not going to give you stories. The tourists are not going to give you experiences. So you need to get out of the tourist area and experience the city.
Right now we're in the Garden District, which is one of the great unsung areas of the city. This is where a lot of the rich European transplants built mansions back in the 1800s. And if you take a little walk, we got like a mile walk here, you're just gonna see beautiful home after beautiful home after beautiful home, and you're just gonna be, wow. So many great photo ops and just fun stuff, culminating in Magazine Street, which is a really great funky street with shops and antique stores and restaurants. Let's go photo walk the Garden District.
Our photo walk here is loose. Start on Magazine Street, which is like the main street of this 6-mile district, and walk the side streets. Start by the Commander's Palace, a very popular high-end restaurant, and then just explore with your camera eye, gawking at all these amazing Victorian homes, one after the other. And if you're into city murals like I am, you're going to want to end up on the corner of Josephine and Magazine and get yourself a selfie in front of the Greetings from NOLA sign. Another great off-the-beaten-path activity is hopping on one of the classic New Orleans streetcars and taking it for a ride on the St. Charles Line, the oldest continuously operating streetcar in the world, circa 1835, and being whisked through uptown and the tree-lined streets, which is home to some of the great mansions of the city. For photographers, just take a window seat and let your camera do the talking out the window. Check out the view. We were lucky to hitch a ride for another great view to the Esplanade Avenue District, which leads to the expansive city park and waterfront. And yeah, even more incredible mansions here. We were headed to, of all places, the cemetery. You'll see why in a second.
Cemeteries don't look like this in Akron, Ohio.
Yes. What makes these cemeteries unique in the context of this country is the fact that these tombs are above the ground and that they are reused. And they are above the ground because the water table here is high. The first burials were placed along the banks of the river and the levee, and they learned very quickly they'd have a hard time burying in a floodplain. Imagine what happens to wooden buoyant caskets, which are forced below the ground when the water table rises. They would get pushed back up out of the ground. So they stopped burying in the ground during the Spanish colonial time. The Spanish introduced these above ground burial forms. Because these cemeteries aren't depressing and grim and foreboding. Some people consider them outdoor museums.
Be sure to stay tuned for our photo tip segment, where I will show you how to get great dramatic photos of the tombs in midday. But meanwhile, looking at all those resting places makes you a little hungry, right? We're going to take a quick lunch break, but first, since eating out in New Orleans is such a big thing, I wanted to run down the restaurants we visited over our time there. Acme Oyster, Napoleon, and Joey K served us traditional local fare like red beans and rice and gumbo, while Babs and Copper Vine offered a contemporary twist on Creole fare. We stayed upstairs, in fact, at the Copper Vine, which offers 10 lofty guest rooms and is in the heart of downtown. Cafe Du Monde is directly across from Jackson Square and is considered a must-stop during your visit. For the French beignet, basically a fried donut with a whole lot of sugar on top, be prepared to wait online. There is always a line there. Turkey and the Wolf is a highly popular spot in the Garden District that's known for unique, one-of-a-kind, over-the-top sandwiches like the collard greens melt, fried bologna, and the Sprite pie. Wow. Then there's the historic Dooky Chase, a Southern Creole restaurant in the Treme District with a huge place in civil rights history. Martin Luther King and other leaders strategized here, and many U.S. presidents have dined at Dooky Chase as well, most notably George Bush Jr. and Barack Obama. Don't forget to make a reservation.
I feel so lucky we finally got into Dooky Chase's restaurant, arguably the most famous and historic restaurant in New Orleans. We came here yesterday, just thought we'd walk in the door, and they said, I don't think so. You'll come back tomorrow at 11 if you want to come here. So we're here having lunch at 11 o'clock, and it's okay. What do we have to order? Well, red beans and rice, gumbo, jambalaya, fried chicken. Fried chicken, that's what I'm having. Oh boy, look what we got there. Southern fried chicken. Smell that. From Dooky Chase, deep in the heart of Louisiana. Remember, I have the taste of a 6-year-old, but that's okay. Other people love fried chicken too. And baked macaroni and cheese. And because I'm a kid who has never grown up, I'm starting with macaroni. Wow. Cheesy and wonderful. Now, fried chicken. I'm going to start with the wing. The Colonel's got a lot to learn.
Meanwhile, what about that French Quarter, the most visited spot in town? Can you get great photos there? Of course, especially at night. But is Bourbon Street as wild as some locals say?
You have to go to Bourbon Street because Bourbon Street is the most famous street. But outside of Bourbon Street, New Orleans is mixed with different blends.
But just around the corner, any corner, you will find quieter side streets filled with incredible architecture, stunning wrought iron balconies, charming galleries, and again, great food everywhere you look. explore the one-of-a-kind voodoo shops, then take a quick detour off Royal and St. Peter to Jackson Square, the true jewel of New Orleans and a must-capture photo spot.
And the thing about Jackson Square, it's like the heart of New Orleans. So if you see any of the, I guess, kind of the first couple pictures that you'll see of New Orleans, you'll see pictures of Jackson Square and the artists.
In our upcoming photo segment, I'll show you how to get incredible shots of the square with just your phone. So stay tuned for that.
It's New Orleans. Let the good times roll. Why not?
And after the break, we're going to keep the good times rolling as we dive into the city's legendary music scene.
Could you do When the Saints, just a few notes of it?
Oh, absolutely. Try and stop me.
Okay, go for it. That was incredible.
Food and music go hand in hand in New Orleans, of course, which is the birthplace of jazz, early rock and roll, and other forms of music. But to find out why it's such a big deal, well, we stopped by the Preservation Hall, where traditional music is played every night to sold-out crowds, and we got a meeting with the great Ronell Johnson from the band.
Music is one of the biggest parts of what makes New Orleans, New Orleans. It's in the blood, it's in the culture. It's what you do, you know, you play music, you know, in New Orleans.
And what is it about the area that makes it such a hot spot for music?
Well, it being, like they say, it's a gumbo pot with a whole lot of different cultures being let in, and then this being the birthplace of jazz with the Congo Square and the drummers and the African drums and percussionists and musicians. It was the perfect collaboration for everything to come together. All the marches, the European the operas, the Negro spirituals from the church, and like I said, the marches from the military bands. It all came together here with those African rhythms. And it had to happen, and also ragtime. Right. Ragtime predates jazz by about 10 years. And with all of that going on, music had to be the thing here. Music and food, Exhibit A.
It's hard to walk down the streets of New Orleans without seeing musicians playing for their supper, and that's one of the great things about the city. Now, the new go-to spot is Frenchman Street, which is about a mile away from Bourbon Street, where the focus is totally on music as opposed to partying. Not that the people aren't also there to let it hang out.
So the popularity with the street music, it's kind of like having that joy, because you don't have to, for one, you don't have to pay to get in the club. For two, you don't have to buy a drink. And for three, you get to hear free music. Like, who don't love free music? And then live music at that. Like, you can't get that nowhere else.
It's one of a kind. It's very different, unique. Like, it takes a lot for a lot of people to understand it, but once you hear it, you just know it. Like, oh, that's it. That's what I've been looking for. That's that New Orleans jazz I want here. That old school jazz, you know, Louis Armstrong type of music.
While you're in New Orleans, be sure to stop by Armstrong Park, named for the great local musician Louis Armstrong, where you can see the spot where jazz was said to be invented.
Yes, it can't be overstated the significance of this very historic site. So New Orleans is very well known for music, obviously jazz, but basically every form of American popular music either came from New Orleans or was heavily informed. There's one specific place it came from, and that would be here, which was Congo Square. This was the only place in slaveholding America where enslaved Africans were permitted to gather. Anything from rhythm and blues to rock and roll to bounce music, all these forms of American popular music, that it goes directly back to the slave gatherings in Congo Square, which goes directly back to West Africa.
And if you're in town on a weekend, make sure to look for the second line parades. They go back to the jazz funeral, a blending of mourning and celebration. The first line would be the mourners, and the second line, the community members who join in to honor the life with a big brass band.
What separates the second line from any other parade is you get to participate. Up front, you have the parade group and the band. That's the first line. Back behind, that's where you come in. Friends, neighbors, anybody watching the parade can follow along. That's the second line. The only requirement is that you put a little strut in your step.
Social clubs in New Orleans throw their own parades every Sunday, and we joined in with the Single Men's Social Aid and Pleasure Club. They know how to throw a party. This was our first stop after we arrived to town, and boy, were our cameras happy. If you go to New Orleans, make it a point to catch the parade. We are sure glad that we did.
When we come back from the break, it's photo tip time.
I'm standing in front of the Cafe du Monde, where everybody wants to come and get a beignet. That is an important shot. That's a pretty simple one right overhead to get all the sugar on top of the donut. You got street musicians right behind me. Nothing screams New Orleans photos like street music. Put in a tip and get some cool close-ups of the instruments and the guys' expressions and the gals playing their instruments. And then I'm going to take you across the street. Okay, so right behind me, you have got the most iconic shot of New Orleans. How do I know this? Because before I go visit the city, the first thing I do is I type the name of it into Google. I like to see what shots show at the top of image search. This baby on the corner of Royal and St. Peter is number 1, 2, 3, 4, you name it. I'm here early in the morning, which generally is a really good time. I like the light on the building. I like the fact there's not a lot of people around. Unfortunately, I'm competing with some street cleaning and some food delivery, but the shot is here. The trick is, how do you get it? Let's go look at that right now. Most people will take the shot right down here, and when they're shooting on their 1x lens, they can't get the whole building in. When they go to 0.5, they can, but it's distorted. You really will do a lot better by just moving back and back and back until you fit it in very nicely. One of the most popular shots in New Orleans is historic Jackson Square right across the street, leading to the wonderful church. Looks like a shot out of Disneyland. Most people make the mistake, walk in there and try to get up close. Look what we have here. We have height. You always want to get height. It really makes for a better shot. Check it out. I'm going to take it from up here. Put your camera lens on your telephoto, whether that be 2x, 3x, or 5x, and from right up here, you get a really nice shot. I'm actually at 2x. This is the way I like it. 2x, you're actually going to see the entire square, believe it or not, even though you're across the street. You may be wondering, how do I get all those cool shots going down the road? Well, how about a cable car? The St. Charles car goes by some beautiful mansions. You stick your camera right out here, hold it steady, and you've got beautiful video shots. Also, Uber out the window there as well. But you're going to get a better view going this way, trust me.
All right, let's go over some of the top New Orleans photo spots and when you want to be there for your best shot. Jackson Square is best in the morning before the crowds and street performers arrive. You also get the light on the church, making it stand out against the Andrew Jackson statue, which it will not do in the afternoon. French Quarter balconies, early morning by far. Frenchman Street, which of course is considered the new Bourbon Street, is all about nighttime because that's when the street performers come out. Don't forget that the musicians are happy to have you photograph them, but please remember to tip. The cemetery, late afternoon for those great dramatic shadows, and if you happen to be there earlier, that's okay, because there's an app for that. One of my go-to apps for shots like this is the Google Snapseed app, and it has 3 quick tools to transform your photo. Start by opening the image, then go to Tools, click Drama. Fine-tune it and accept the changes. Next, go for HDR and repeat the process. Then it's black and white, and choose one of the looks at the bottom of the screen. Save the photo to your camera roll and impress your social media friends. Get your shots of the Garden District in the morning or early afternoon before the shadows begin appearing on the buildings. Because on the great old homes, you do not want the shadows, you want even light. The streetcars look cooler at nighttime, in my opinion. Just know that you might have to wait a while for one of the cars to show up. I tried a motion blur trick on the streetcar shot, which makes it look a little arty and lets you see movement. How to do it? Take the photo at nighttime and pan the phone as the car goes by. This will apply the movement. And remember, it's a hit and miss thing. You'll probably have to do it a few times to get it right.
Let the good times roll.
New Orleans, is it a photo magnet or what? Alrighty, so that's a wrap for a visit to New Orleans. Before we go, 2 quick questions. Number 1, where would you like to see us go next? Number 2, any specific photo tips you'd love to see me cover in an upcoming episode? Remember, I'm just 1 click away at PhotowalksTV.com. I'm Jefferson Graham, and I'll see you on the next Photo Walk.